I've done 4,000 interviews. That's crazy, isn't it? 4,000 interviews. And I always look at it like I am going to college forever, right? 12 years of college. And I'm learning something every night. And look at this panel. I look at it like this. Linda Moulton Howe is my professor. Do you guys dig that? Yes. Right? And I am able to just sit and ask the professor anything. And so this is what happens with Linda. I don't know how many interviews I've done with Linda. I don't know, 50? It's a lot, right? It's a lot. And I am able to ask a question and then listen for 30 minutes. And I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm always learning. So when we get into ancient places and earth mysteries around this planet, I'm going to ask everybody the same question, Linda, but I want to ask you first, Professor Howe, if you were going to pick a location on this planet that intrigues you the most, what would that be?
Old Mesopotamia, regardless of what the boundaries are today.
Ooh.
And because going all the way back to 1983, when I had a script that was accepted by HBO to produce another one by CNN, my goal was to take the information that I was getting from animal mutilation research and join it up with the history of this planet, that animal mutilations were not just a current phenomena, that this was part of a huge presence of a variety of different intelligences. And what focused that for me was 1983 was a pivotal year like 79 when I did A Strange Harvest, that I had whistleblowers in which I was able to see what their cards were, what they had as security.
Right.
And I knew then that the government cover-up was so huge and that the people who had actual knowledge, actual data, had been working on going to places like Mesopotamia, and then, in my case, telling me that the presence of Sumerians, Akkadians, Assyrians, all of them related to real solar systems that were within 40 light years of our Earth.
Do you think we'll ever understand?
Wait. They knew this then. They knew this going back to World War II. This is the important part. And so I am now getting people who are saying to me, we'll give you an interview. And I get blocked by the government at the contract level. But what those people were telling me leading up to those blocks, as far as I'm concerned today, it's real. The history of our planet is from other extraterrestrials interacting. And that the most impressive, and then I'll stop, the most impressive of all of the people that have talked to me with evidence in some cases was December of 1999. It was a meeting that was set up. The three of us had to travel. There was a person who was retiring from the Defense Intelligence Agency. He sought me out through the other person who worked for the World Bank. The man who worked for the World Bank got in touch with me at a conference in San Francisco, came up to me specifically to talk, because it's much safer to talk to me in a conference than it is on a computer or a telephone line. And they laid out for me that our government operates on a timeline of 270 million years ago. There were 3 extraterrestrial civilizations at that time that were competing with each other over Earth, but a lot of other things. One type was reptilian, one type was Nordic, and one type was gray. And none of those players have changed today. Where we are today in 2025 is that conflict, multiple extraterrestrials are still at play. And the government appears to be moving toward possibly finally breaking open the truth that they have known.
So you think that, which was my question, so let's follow up with where I was going with this. Do you think that we will ever understand and get to the truth of an area like Mesopotamia and ancient Sumer?
They've been tutoring me for all these years.
Right.
Essentially, the government agents are given an assignment, and I've learned enough to know that what is happening on the planet now, it has the feeling of huge danger and multiple destructions, again, like blocking certain other timelines. I feel this is really complicated, really important, and there's not one question about whether or not we are the genetic manipulation of a genetic experiment by at least 3 of these extraterrestrial civilizations, going all the way back to 270 million and coming up to where there was a branch of Neanderthal and Cro-Magnon Homo sapien sapien 45,000 years ago. Who controlled that? Where are they today? What is the balance of power? And in the United States, Russia, China, North Korea, Mesopotamia today, who has more control?
We're waiting for you, Professor Howe, to get us. It's an exciting time for sure. It's an exciting time. Matt LaCroix, how you doing?
Hey, Jimmy. Good.
What's the mysterious place on this planet?
There's so many strange and unusual places that are enigmatic and mysterious that don't fit in with the chronology of history that we're told. But I would say the one that I find the most unusual, the most strange and out of place, is an area of the world that's gotten very little attention yet for archaeology and history. The area around Lake Van in Turkey, I feel like will revolutionize our understanding of a lot of ancient lost history. Places that seem to be connected to many others around the world, like Peru, Bolivia, Egypt, and others that have connections that go all the way back, even within symbols we see in the Vatican. And, powerful religions and ancient cultures around the world seem to be having a legacy of something that was once there, something connected back to even biblical narratives, things that connections that go back to unknown technologies, symbols that seem to have teachings, motifs that go back to the core of Hermeticism and the knowledge of the constants and laws of the universe. Very, very powerful knowledge. I would say even beyond just regular knowledge, but what you would say is divine knowledge. Divine knowledge from a source beyond of us understanding not just who we are and our role in the universe and what we're playing, but the role that the functionality of everything and how it all fits into place. And I'm very excited to explore those mysteries with Brian Forster is one of the ones helping explore those. And we're looking into seeing if we can help uncover a great mystery of who we are in our past.
I've been following your stuff, man, and you're on the trail, Matt. Seriously, good stuff, man. Good stuff. Brian Arnold, what is the most mysterious place on planet Earth besides Skinwalker Ranch?
You stole my thunder, Jimmy. Honestly, there are so many, and first off, I feel a little bit out of my depth being up here with these amazing scholars of all things.
No, Brian, we all want to be you. Trust me.
Borrow my shirt. It's not a hard job. No, honestly, my wheelhouse, only because I was thrust into it, is, obviously Skinwalker Ranch. And, but it goes so far beyond, and it's been really interesting and a cool experience for me to dive headfirst into the research that we've been doing on Skinwalker Ranch, not only that has been documented on the docuseries The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, but, since I was associated with it from the beginning when my good friend Brandon Fugel purchased the ranch back in 2016. But it's been amazing to be able to see the things there in rural Utah that correlate or have ties to so many other amazing places. And we've had...
Does it extend? Is it the entire basin, which is
absolutely.
Geographically very big?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it'd be silly to say that the 512 acres of barbed wire fence holds in all of this amazing strange energy and activity. It's the entire Uinta Basin. A lot of people affectionately refer to it as UFO Alley, if you will. And there's a lot of people, around the basin and, near the ranch that have experienced a lot of what Linda has documented for, many, many years of
Animal mutilations.
Animal mutilations and strange activity in that regard. I mean, we were lucky enough to have Linda come out to the ranch, and she was researching Skinwalker Ranch when I was probably still in diapers, and has done amazing work and been, groundbreaking in that regard. But there's so many different places around this world that intrigue me that I would, love to find out more about. But as far as I'm concerned, because I'm able to put boots on the ground and we see in real time and can document it for the world to see, I mean, I'm pretty proud of the work we're doing at Skinwalker Ranch, and I think it's an absolutely amazing, amazing place.
No, tomorrow, everybody, we're going to have the cast of Skinwalker Ranch here on this stage at 10 a.m., and my mom wants to know what time I'm coming home for dinner. Isn't that bizarre? Should I call her right now?
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
I've done it before. So, well, we're going to be here tomorrow, but is it 9 a.m.? What?
I know, that's what I said. I was hoping there was a schedule change, and it really was 10.
Oh, breakfast with me at 8. You ready? Okay,
Always.
But I don't want to repeat for tomorrow. But for those of you that are wondering what I'm about to ask, I know it's on everybody's mind. Not what's been on the show, and don't hide behind an NDA right now, okay? What's the craziest shit you've ever seen there? And did you, that's what you want to know, right? Right? Okay. Now, and were you a believer in whatever you're about to say before you started working there?
I'll answer the second question first, and no.
Okay. So what's the craziest shit you've ever seen?
Man, there's been a lot of crazy shit that we've seen. And you guys have witnessed some of it.
We don't care about that. We want the secret Bryant Dragon Arnold thing that he just keeps to
You should have
himself.
probably had Thomas Winterton up here, because for the longest time they called me the phenomenon repellent. Because I'd be there for an elongated period of time and nothing would happen, and I could freaking leave for an hour and shit would go haywire.
Yeah.
But no, I've seen, I think for me, the craziest thing is the effect that property's had on different individuals. To me, that's the craziest, because this
Psychologically or physically?
Both.
Both.
So, I mean, this is flesh and blood. This is what, I can look at something in the sky and there's always room for interpretation. Or I can see, something happening on equipment, and sure, that shouldn't happen. But, when it comes down to the actual person side of it,
Right.
really that is it for me. I mean, we've had individuals go into a catatonic state and lose periods of time up to 10 minutes and not realize what has happened. Like, they've described it like being in a cone of silence. We've had individuals on the property that have talked about how they felt like they were in an MRI machine. We've had people with major medical injuries from an unknown origin that literally has still to this day not been explained. So for me, but it doesn't happen to everybody.
Right.
Like I can literally be standing next to somebody, which I have, and have them have such a reaction that their head feels like it's going to burst, and we have to put them in a Faraday cage enclosure so that it can block out whatever energies they're feeling at that time. And I'm standing there going, man, it's a nice day.
That is probably more frightening than a skinwalker in your
100%.
bedroom. Yeah,
100%.
Sure. You know, Linda said earlier, Linda, I don't want to throw you under the bus, but one of the comments she said, I'm going to tell you, Jimmy, Skinwalker Ranch is strange.
Well, no, I said it's like hell.
Okay, I didn't want to say that, Linda. That's what she
some
said.
days it can be.
Yeah, that's what she said. Brian
Yes,
Force.
that's what I said.
Sir.
Besides Peru, what's the most mysterious place on this planet for you?
Puma Punku in Bolivia.
Oh, yes.
Why?
Because whoever did that work at least 13,000 years ago did nothing else on the planet. It's unique. It is not like the work done in Peru with the polygonal work. It's not like the work done in Egypt. The level of precision is probably the finest craftsmanship that you can find in stone on the planet.
Right.
There are no tool marks,
Right.
no sanding marks, and there are elements there that are unfinished. So what we do know now is that whoever was doing the construction of the two different types of stone brought from many, many miles away, there was some kind of cataclysmic event that stopped the construction and finalizing of that location.
Yeah, for sure. I've been to Puma Punku twice now with Brian this year, and we'll be there again in a few months. And I got to tell you, Brian, you're right. Here's the crazy thing about Puma Punku. Elevation, yes. The desert, yes. Giorgio Tsoukalos with his big hair talking about it, yes. We have that. But it's right off the street. You pull up, you are in a car, and you can see the H blocks from the road, right? It's like right there. You don't have to go deep into the jungle to see this place. Anyway, you step up there, Brian, and you look around, and you have just the most intense WTF moment. That's all you can do. You don't have any answers. You're just looking around like, how? But here's the other part before we move on. Most of it, there's a huge lack of funding there. Huge. There's no archaeology.
There's no interest by the Bolivian government
No
in
interest.
doing any more excavation.
It's great. You walk around and you see stones in the dirt. The craziest, precise drill hole stone. Matt, crazy, isn't it? Who here has been to Puma Punku? I know.
I know it by studying photos.
It's the craziest thing to view, to see this just lying there, uncared for. And by some estimations, 10 to 15,000 years old, older than Göbekli Tepe, and that's crazy to me. Let's go to Jason Quick. Jason.
All right.
What is the most mysterious place on this planet?
I have a different answer.
I'm looking for a different answer. Say Puma Punku, I dare you.
I'm going to say LaSalle, France.
Oh.
And the reason is there has been an artifact recovered from there that goes back 25,000 years. And it's called the Venus of LaSalle.
Oh, this was released last week. Yes.
And what's very interesting about it is it has a motif of the Venus, like a large naked
Who has
woman.
seen the photos of this that were just released in the press? It's insane. Go ahead. Yeah.
So let me just set the stage. 25,000 years old. And it has a Venus figure on it. And she's holding a bull's horn, and it has 13 marks on it. So it's a motif of the moon. So she's the goddess of the moon. And it's counting the moon cycles. And this is the earliest motif of an astrological motif of them studying the sky and creating an archetype. And then, so this is 25,000 years ago, and then we see the same archetype, the same motif going into Europe, And then 10,000 years after that, we see it in ancient Anatolia as well. So we see this idea spreading from France into Europe and then down into ancient Turkey, and the same motifs continue forward. So whoever created that has a story to tell of where
Did
we
you
come
see, I'm just going to mention this really quick, found with the Venus in the same excavation, it is the first ever discovered artistic representation of a human face done artistically. And you saw, and it's just as beautiful as Michelangelo's work in Italy. It is and we're talking about 25,000 years ago. We weren't supposed to have artistic expression back then. And what do you make of that? And what level of civilization are we really talking about?
Well, it just shows that they mapped the sky. They were observers. They were artists. They had a fundamental knowledge to them, which I believe is the basis of civilization. Once they studied the stars and the moon and the sun and calculated all these things and follow it and create archetypes, this is the beginning of civilization and these type of thoughts. So go ahead, Linda. I know you
Just
want
a quick, the DIA guy in 1999 said they have proof that 3 competing extraterrestrial civilizations 270,000 years ago. So they were already in genetic manipulation conflict. This would be young to turn
Yeah,
into
totally young. Yeah, totally young. Just like, okay, are you guys ready? You guys want to have some fun? Okay. I will give a fade to black t-shirt autographed to the person in this room that could point out the NSA agent that is in here right now. And I can tell you, no, actually wrong. Now, are you guys comfortable with that knowledge right now? Now, but I'm going to introduce you to that NSA agent. Mr. Mike Ricksecker down there in the end. Thank you for joining us and breaking ranks, Mike.
Absolutely. Now you've just put everybody in danger.
Mike, what's your, they think I'm joking.
No, it's
It's like, no, I'm, okay, so anyway. What's the
do
most...
this every time.
Yeah, I know, I do it every time. I love it more every time that I do that. Mike, what's the most mysterious place on the planet?
It's a great question. There's been some great answers so far, and I would love to say it all because I'm just so interested in everything to do with.
He does look like a Fed, though, doesn't he? Doesn't he? Looks like you look Fed-ish.
Fed-ish.
Yeah, Fed-ish.
That's the thing. Fed-ish.
Fed-ish.
Okay, we'll go with that. Fed-ish. We did have to wear suits sometimes and go off into those places hidden in plain sight, and that was a lot of fun.
When you say we, yeah, exactly. Okay, so
That's as far as I can go.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, the universe just fascinates me, and the easy answer for me would just to say Egypt because I've been doing so much work there lately. But an absolutely mysterious place to me that access is very limited to is Antarctica. There's what's hidden under the ice there. We really don't know. Yeah, we've taken ice core samples. We know that there are ancient jungles down there, but it's an area of the globe that has fascinated mankind for at least the last 100 years, if not longer than that. You have the stories of Admiral Byrd. We know that the Nazis were down there doing something. We look at the ancient maps and we find that Antarctica is represented on those maps and all of a sudden disappears from the maps. And suddenly we rediscover it in 1820. Recent scientific...
on maps without ice.
On maps without ice
Yes.
between animals, yes.
Yes.
But then you have the recent scientific experiments that have been going on down there. And when we first heard, was about 6-7 years ago, news reports of neutrinos that were coming up out of the ground without a source. And we're supposed to be studying the neutrinos coming from space. And the news reports are telling us, well, this is indicative of a parallel universe running in reverse time. And those news reports got laughed out. You look at Forbes articles, and they're laughing at them. And all of a sudden, a couple years later, we have a peer-reviewed published paper saying, yes, that we have detected these neutrinos working in this fashion and could be indicative of a parallel universe running in reverse time. So something very strange is going on down there. And now we have a scientific experiment that's being set up where they excavated old gold mines in South Dakota, and from Chicago, they're going to be shooting neutrinos out to these old gold mines. What in the world are we studying, and where is this going?
What do you think?
Well, I'm very interested. I mean, I have my book Travels Through Time. I'm very interested in the parallel universe running in reverse time aspect, because when we look at ancient symbolism and like our oldest alchemical symbol, the Ouroboros, and we're seeing, basically snake eating its own tail. But when you look at representations of it, there are two sides to that. There's the backside and there's the belly. And if you have, to me, this was the ancients representing this in their own way. And if you have take one track running in one direction and the other track running in the other, meeting at the head, to me, that head eating its own tail is indicative of the Big Bang. And the question of what did we have before the universe? It was the universe. It's constant recycle and renewal, which is what that symbol is. And so I think that is what we're seeing here with this.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Mike
could I-
Ritzecker.
Yes.
Could I
Linda,
add?
can I get to Michael Cremo? Is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I would actually love to hear
I'm just
what Linda
messing
has to
with you,
say.
Linda.
Yeah, that leads into Michael directly.
What's that?
Does it?
Leads right into
Okay.
what Michael has been doing for decades. What he just said.
You want to host? What the hell? I've lost control of everything. It's hot in here. It's hot. It's hot. Michael, Forbidden Archaeology, it's an honor and a privilege, young man, to have you with us. Everybody give it up for Michael Cremo. He's sitting right in front of you. So asking you such a loaded question, right? What's the most mysterious? What's the craziest place on planet Earth? You've looked at them all, and you've written about them all. But I'm very curious to hear your answer. Lean in.
Okay.
We all want to hear this.
All right. Actually, it's anywhere you can see the stars at night. And I'm saying that because most people on this planet live in places that are full of light pollution. They can't actually see the night sky. I mean, probably many of you have been in a desert somewhere or in some isolated place on a moonless night. And when you see the Milky Way, you see the millions and millions of stars, trillions of them up there. It makes people wonder what the real purpose of life is. It kind of draws their attention away from the little screens we focus on so much. And I think we've lost a lot of our sense of wonder, our sense of our questioning. Where did that all come from? Where do I fit into it? What's my ultimate destination? So I think that is the most amazing, mysterious place, somewhere where you can actually see the stars at night. And it's actually becoming a problem in Chile. They had observatories, but now they're worried because the light pollution is starting to come into effect. So it could be that at some time in this planet there wouldn't be anywhere where you could see the night sky and wonder about it. And I'm involved in a project that's very much connected with that. It's called the Temple of Vedic Planetarium in West Bengal in India, where we're putting together a huge museum and planetarium theater. I'm going to be going there next week to take part in some the development of that project. But we want to re-enchant this world, bring the wonders of the universe and our place in it. I think the big mistake that modern science makes is that they think we're an accidental creatures in an accidental universe. But actually, it's a consciousness-based universe, and I appreciate the opportunity to say that here at the Conscious Life Expo, because consciousness is a symptom of life. So, pretty lively place here.
Michael friggin' Cremo. Linda, you had a comment.
I did a documentary in 2018, Antarctica, Alien Secrets Beneath the Ice. And the genesis of it was at a conference quite a ways before 2018, where a man had come up in a group of people who were asking me questions after I had spoken, and leaned over and said, "There are extraterrestrials under the ice in Antarctica. Would you like to know more?" And by 2018, working with a Navy SEAL that generated a power, I never have experienced it anywhere else but when I work with this Navy SEAL. And his story was profound and huge about an assignment 2 miles underneath the surface ice of the Beardmore Glacier in Antarctica. And the part I was going to contribute outside of the fact that our government knows there is a huge facility, it is alive, it is energized, it is perfect, it is huge. There's one room that he measured as a Navy SEAL at the request of his superiors was how big were the rooms, and one was 9 square acres. Why would there be rooms referred to as rooms and 9 square acres? And he had a colleague and a Marine who also had information from work he had done in the Marines having to do with ETs. And working on that documentary, one of the fascinating facets of it all was that our government, of course, was in control of what was happening 2 miles down, and they had an archaeologist working there for several months. And they were photographing and using a laser gun that would go in 4.526 inches at every single symbol that was carved into huge, gigantic black walls, thousands of symbols. And the depth of the symbols was never off that number, not anywhere. So not only was the construction of gigantic black, you would almost say, books, but they knew that Antarctica was being described as an entire extraterrestrial civilizations from long ago. Antarctica is the biggest mystery on the planet in many ways.
How long?
Well, depending on how deep you're going and where you are, if you go back a few million years, you get to the point of where it was all one gigantic continent. So you have to ask, when did it start splitting?
Right.
When did the dinosaurs and all the tropical, when did it start shifting over to ice? And there are different points of view about that. But from my point of view, it was ETs taking advantage of some kind of an impact that caused the Earth to start going into what is called an ice phase. And that could be in the future also.
Fascinating. Jason, I'm just going to mention this really quick, 30 seconds. Jason's brain works different from everybody in this room. And he called me up last year in a panic. It was a text. Jimmy, I got to talk to you. Okay, so we set up a phone call, and he's on the screen, and he's bug-eyed. I'm like, what's going on? Man, I need you to tell me I'm not crazy. And so he shows me what he's working on. I said, you're not crazy. This is spot on the money. We decided to write a book together about this, and a month later, the book came out. He wrote it without me. And that's how, they think it's a joke.
Yeah, it's not a joke.
It's actually a true story. It was a month and a day. So, but that's how his mind works. And he's able to connect things around the world, just like everybody on this panel. So I want to talk pyramids.
Okay.
I want to talk pyramids. And the reason, and we're going to hit everybody with pyramid stuff next, okay? How is it that cultures allegedly that never communicated with each other built and designed the exact frigging pyramid on their own continent? And the dogma is we're not giving them enough credit, right? They were just good, and they were doing it at the same time. How is this possible? Was there communication, or was it just DNA revealing itself?
Well, that is like the million-dollar question. But what we can decipher is that the measurements of the pyramids are not a mistake. And basically, they reflect the heavens. They reflect the measurements.
Lean into the mic, my brother. Yeah, there you go.
The measurements reflect creation itself. So someone very smart observed the heavens for thousands of years, watched the cycles of time, measured all the different celestial bodies and how they worked. And they took those measurements as this is the blueprint of creation. This is the blueprint of God, basically. And they took those measurements and then applied them to their building structures because they were monuments to the gods, monuments to the stars and the earth, the sun, the moon, the planets. So if we understand those measurements, then we can apply which measurements to which pyramid and which pyramids are connected to which planets, the stars, the suns, the moon. And what I would say is when we look at the three main pyramids on the Giza Plateau, this is, the mystery. No one really talks about that. Those three pyramids are actually a giant calendar. And if you watch the sun cycle and the lunar cycle, the middle pyramid, that middle pyramid, Khafre, the sun sets behind it during the equinox. And the sun sets, and it has an illusion where the sun stands on the back of the Sphinx. So if you're standing in front of the Sphinx during the equinox, it sits right on the back of the Sphinx. During the summer solstice, the sun is in between the two larger pyramids, Khufu and Khafre. During the winter solstice, the sun is behind Menkaure Pyramid, but it also measures the lunar calendar as well. And the original word for pyramid is actually Mer, which means the river. And it's the sky, it's the heavens.
I thought that was incense given to the baby Jesus. But
This is M-E-R.
oh, that's M-E-R.
Yeah.
Okay. But how does that explain? Linda got that joke. She laughed. You got that joke, didn't you? But how does that explain the avenue in Mexico City? How does this explain Chichen Itza? How does this explain the pyramids in China? How does this explain? I don't know if anybody in here knows this. There are hundreds of pyramids in Peru.
Yeah.
You drive down the street in Peru and you drive past pyramids.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I'm in a bus. I'm with Brian. We're driving past. We're on the road. I go, what's that? It's a pyramid. What? So's that. And so's that. They're everywhere on this planet. So, yeah, we can talk about Giza, but what about every other continent? They're everywhere.
There's only two answers that are reasonable, and that is sometime in our very ancient past, we had one knowledge.
Right.
And that knowledge spread throughout the planet, and then we kind of lost it. Another thing is the teacher theory, where after a cataclysm occurred, a teacher came, and are many stories around the world of a teacher coming on a boat after a cataclysm and then teaching how to rebuild civilization and teaching the knowledge of the stars and architecture and all these things. So it's basically a vault of knowledge written in stone. But another thing, there's a theory, John Shagazy, I forget his name exactly, I'm sorry, John. But he wrote a book called Pyramid Gravity Force, and he has an incredible theory that at one time in history, the planet lost its magnetic fields, that there was a huge cataclysm. So basically, the weather was very erratic. So you couldn't really plant vegetables, you couldn't farm, you couldn't do anything because the weather was too chaotic and unpredictable. And what the knowledge that these ancient humans received is if they build pyramids around the planet, it would correct the electromagnetic field of the Earth. And by doing that, it stabilized our climate and it locked in our North Pole. And then his theory is that in the 18th century, when they started to go into the pyramids, what did they do? They used dynamite. So they just blew up the pyramids trying to get up in them. And during that time, if you look at the North Pole started to move very quickly after they started to break in and destroy these pyramids. And he is a scientist, and he went to the pyramids to measure the gravity waves. And he said that the pyramids actually are measurable with gravity particles. I don't know I'm not a scientist, I don't know the exact name to it. But it's a very interesting theory that the pyramids were built around the entire planet to stabilize this world so we can live here.
I've heard that before, too.
Yeah.
Brian Arnold.
This is going to be a letdown on this topic. I'll tell you what,
no.
after that, that was amazing.
Oh, no. What's under the plateau?
Thank you.
What's under that mound of dirt that is shaped like a pyramid? Or is it shaped like a flying saucer? I'm just saying, what's under that plateau?
Under that mesa?
Yeah.
That is a great question, and we are doing our damnedest to try and figure out what it is. We don't know. We've pulled some interesting things out of it, certainly. Metallic objects that, according to scholars at the University of Utah, consists of materials that are akin to the type of ceramic tiles that they put on space shuttles. The hell is that doing 300 feet inside of a
Michael
mesa?
Cremo knows.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, tell me, will you? You can
Well,
answer that
but
question.
here's the point with that, and I say it in a cavalier way. Michael has revealed and shown to the world stuff that could be hundreds of millions of years old, and you're talking about something like this underneath that mesa. The mesa looks like it's been there for a while, right? So it would indicate to me that whatever is under there, it would be like Michael Cremo numbers. You know what I mean? In age.
Yeah, we, a couple of years ago pulled some organic material out of there during one of our drilling exercises trying to get to whatever object is in there. And again, the scientists looked at it and predated it back to some sort of ancient wetland or something like that. Doesn't look like a wetland to me. So who knows, and it looked like it had been charred, so of course we're going to sit and speculate. Could it have been, just a normal cataclysm? Could it have been some sort of a craft or something like that anciently that crashed in that area and was covered up? I mean, there's all kinds of stories. Personally, I have not seen a physical craft fly in and out of the mesa like we've heard, stories talked about, but we do we have crazy energies and signals coming out of what seems to just be a sandstone mesa in the Uinta Basin in Utah. And, it's theorized based on the way, the Uinta Basin has mountains that run east and west, which is like the only range in the United States, very unusual. So, it's been speculated, is it possible that a lot of the energy that's happening there is because of an ancient, meteor crash that could have, formed the basin. Because if you look at it, I mean, Dr. Travis Taylor has, mapped it all out, and he says, look, it looks like, a big asteroid could have hit here, a meteor could have hit here and scooped out what is the basin, because you've got mountain ranges running in opposite directions. Is that what lends itself to the strange energies in that area? I don't know, but there's definitely strange things there, and I think that the mesa has a lot to do with that. So who knows? Maybe there's one of those amazing counterweight pyramids buried in there somewhere that we're tapping into. I don't know. I love that theory, though.
I would be speaking for the room if I said, get on with it, man. Start digging.
But what happens if we spin the Earth off axis by blowing it up? See, everyone says, just blow it up, get some dynamite in there and blow it up. What are we looking for? I mean, yes, as we are very interested in finding out what is inside of that mesa. There's no getting around it. But what happens if you go in there and try and blow it up and you destroy whatever's in there? Or on top of that, it's dangerous. That thing is like, do you remember the old game, Don't Break the Ice, for us old people, where you tap on one block, and if you tap the wrong one, the whole thing comes down? It's crazy dangerous. Every single winter, with just the amount of water that goes there, the face of that mesa changes some. And it's just super unstable, and the only way we can get in there, and I really like to follow the lead of our principal investigator, Eric Bard, and say, we're going to take a surgical approach, because we don't know what's in there. We don't know what it is, and we want to do more of a biopsy until we know, before we just go blow it up. Plus, it makes it more fun, if you're wondering.
Man, you guys are always blowing shit up, though.
Like what? Rockets?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big ones, too. Michael Cremo, how do you resolve so many cultures developing the same things at the same time, and the further back we go, the bigger it is, the more precise and beautiful it is. But it seems that everybody was doing it at the same time when there was no transoceanic communication. How did this happen?
Well, some possibilities have been mentioned by different of the panel members. I think you could add to it that these people in these different places were observing the same reality, and they were depicting it in their architectural monuments, their myths and legends, and things of that sort. It's like if you have people looking at a mountain, if somebody may be looking at it from the north, somebody from the south, somebody from the east, somebody from the west, and their descriptions are going to be a little bit different because they have a different perspective. But still, it's obvious that there's some underlying reality that they're in touch with. So I think that's another possibility.
But all at the same time? That's what's confusing to me. I like Jason's, the universal teacher.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the possibilities that has to be considered. But I was interested in something that you were talking about in reference to Brian here, and that is the idea that this evidence or these phenomena go way back in time, like Linda was saying, 270 million years.
Right.
My ears kind of...
I know they did, yeah.
When I hear that, because that is dealing with deep time, as I call it, extreme antiquity. So, and this idea of impact events, meteor craters, asteroid craters, and things like that. Sometimes these are reflected in the legends of ancient people. Like we're talking about strange places, Australia. There have been many meteor and impacts in that country. You can see these craters all over. And The legends of the Australian Aboriginal people, the tribes there, they have in their legends that in very, very ancient times, a star fell from the sky and smashed into this place. And that means these people were, because some of these craters are millions of years old. And if these things are recorded in their legends and have been passed down from generation to generation, that means, to me, their ancestors actually witnessed some of these cosmic impact events that have left craters in various parts of the world.
And Matt, thank you for that, Michael. Matt, you've been investigating this very subject. You know, you're going to sites, you're looking at the artifacts, you're looking at the construction, you're looking at the megalithic aspect of it. What do you think is ultimately going on when you see things so similar, but they're 5,000 miles apart?
I think there's two things primarily going on. The first one is that there seemed to have been an entire epoch of history in which civilizations were once connected around the world. Now, whether or not those great teachers that were mentioned, which I really like that comment.
Connected by land? Mental telepathy?
Was it through some kind of an extensive maritime connection?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't know, but I can tell you that we're investigating symbols that can be shown and motifs that are undeniable around the world of a shared common knowledge, but not just any knowledge that seems to be the defining understanding of everything. Like what was mentioned at the end, I really like that, is that there's a type of knowledge that has to do with understanding everything. Our earth, the cycles, our existence here, the creation of everything having to do with going back to source. But the other thing to add is that if those places were destroyed ultimately by some massive series of events, not just the Younger Dryas 12,000 years ago, but there's evidence that there may have been a previous cycle as well, meaning that cyclical rise and falls of civilization have occurred multiple times. And during the intervals of that, there's extensive evidence around the world that there were great teachers that were passing around and recreating civilization again. Like there was something that needed to be maintained here. And over time, especially during the transition of the Pleistocene to the Holocene, around 11,600 years ago or so, that entire structure of knowledge and the understanding of how to build massive 100 to 1,000 plus ton objects with mysterious tools. I mean, Brian Forster, I love his analysis around the world of seeing these places and showing what is undeniable proof of machine cuts, drill holes that are perfect, cuts that were done by some kind of tool that is far beyond Iron Age, Bronze Age tools. It's actually completely mystifying how some of these cultures built what they did. And I want to just give an example is we're looking at an entirely new site called Ionis Kalesi in Turkey that has what may be the first sun cross on Earth that then became the Knights Templar cross and others. But what's fascinating is that some of these laser cut-like symbols in andesite, one of the hardest stones on Earth, pass seamlessly between multi-ton blocks, seamlessly. So if you were going to carve some kind of symbol or motif that was important, how would you seamlessly pass between multiple blocks? You would have to do it after they were already put together. How would you even cut those? The more you look into the perfection of these places and how they created them, the more it brings up questions of whether or not we could even do some of what they did today, especially by hand. I know we have technologies and different things that could come into play, but like Brian mentioned about Pumapunku, Tiwanaku in Bolivia, we're looking at mysterious places around the world that were definitely connected somehow in the ancient past by great teachers and a great legacy of a time that we no longer remember any longer. And I think that ties to the fact that we were once all connected, like we are today, but in a different way. I think that indigenous people lived in conjunction with a more advanced group of humans that had extensive knowledge, but were much more esoteric than we are now. I don't think they had the same kinds of technologies. Maybe it was plasma, maybe, who knows? But I can tell you that whatever that lost civilization around the world that we see evidence for, they tried to maintain it for thousands and thousands of years until it was eventually lost. And we see evidence of primitive cultures trying to recycle and rebuild the things that they did, but they were unable to. And that shows us that there are times in human history that we may have been even more advanced in some ways than we are now, in a completely different way.
And I could add that it also involves Mars in the ancient past. I wrote this before coming down here because I wanted to say that I think this is one of the most important books, The Serious Mystery by Robert K.G. Temple. And in the past 2 years, it was at a conference about 2 years ago, I received it was handed to me, a proton mail about a new confirmation on Mars near Gale Crater, which is where NASA decided some time ago that they were going to do a landing with a lander. Why did they pick Gale Crater? I was given, in addition to the proton mail, I was given a photograph of what is a large rock on Mars with carved symbols. And the information that was given to me was, on Mars, near Gale Crater, are symbols embedded in a rock that are similar to Sumerian. And the Sumerian culture formed the original basis of the Mesopotamian civilization, which is better known as Babylonian and Assyrian. NASA knows the carved rock of symbols is there on Mars. And Elon Musk is trying to move out as fast as he can to get to Mars.
Of course he is. Brian Forrester.
Sir.
You've been to Egypt. You live in Peru. I noticed when I was in Egypt the images of a portal, of a doorway. Jason ended up writing a book about this. And I started photographing these portals and these doorways around the world. I was seeing them everywhere. And it's very hard to explain, but just imagine a doorway with a thing across, a very basic shape. I'm seeing them everywhere. I go to Peru with Brian, start seeing them all over Peru. I see them carved on the H blocks of Pumapunku. I see them at different temples. I see them everywhere. And it's way beyond coincidence. The ancients are trying to tell us something. Brian, you have been to both countries, and you're seeing similarities between the two of them. How is this possible to have things like portals or stargates or whatever we want to call them on both continents? Not close, but identical. And I know you've seen this type of megalithic work on different continents. What's going on?
Well, I would never use the term identical.
Oh, I am.
Well, I wouldn't. You know, I've been to Egypt 10 times. I've lived in Peru for 20 years.
Brian and I stood in front of the H blocks and had the same argument, looking at it. Jimmy, no, it's not. I don't
Discussion.
know.
No, but people say the same thing about H symbols that you see at Göbekli Tepe and at Pumapunku. It's, you know, you're talking about two vertical lines and a horizontal line. It doesn't mean they're related or were co-created by the same thought process. The important thing is pyramid comes from Greek, which is pyramidos. So when the Greeks went to Egypt the first time, around 600 BC, they saw these big things and they said, what are those? And the Egyptians told them, those are called perneter, which means house of nature, which could represent something energetic. So they decided to reinterpret that, and they used the term pyramidos, which means the fire in the middle, or the fire within. That represents some kind of energetic generator. Also, the level of construction capability in Egypt is way beyond anything you find anywhere else on Earth. So I would refer to structures you see on different continents in different countries as pyramidal, but not pyramid. Pyramid refers to Egypt, pyramidos. So again, the level of technical sophistication in Egypt of the 7 or 8 original pyramids, which existed before the time of the dynastic Egyptians, shows that they were meant to vibrate and vibrate as a single entity, a single stone, whereas all the other constructions of pyramidal structures in other parts of the world are far less sophisticated, more or less stones on top of stone, quite often with some kind of mortar. So I think that's the major distinction that I still stick with.
And what do you see that's similar between different cultures around the world when it comes to megalithic work?
Well, I think there were at least 4 different ancient civilizations responsible for what we call megalithic construction. In Peru, like I said, everything is very organic, very polygonal, very right brain, like very artistic. In Egypt, it's very left brain, it's very logical, you have straight lines. I don't think the same culture would do both construction. So I think you have 2 very distinct cultures. One that was logical, one that was playful and artistic. Left brain versus right brain. Then when you go to Easter Island, you see what are called the Moai figures, which now we know are full figures, some of them 40 feet tall. But then you have 2 distinctions. You have the really big ones, which have very European-style noses, and then you have the Tahitian or Polynesian style, which are much shorter and flat nose. So I think the big Moai on Easter Island were made by a very different culture. They're pre-Polynesian. So I think there are at least 4 different ancient civilizations which were the constructors of what we call megalithic works. And I'm very open to the idea that they were alien, not human. Because where is the evidence of an ancient, sophisticated human race? People only come up with the Atlanteans, of which there is no solid evidence. So I'm
the other A word.
Yeah. So I'm totally open to the idea that people or beings came from other star systems, did forms of construction, were interrupted in that construction by a series of cataclysms between 12,800 and 11,600 years ago, and either perished or left as soon as they felt these initial traumatic events beginning.
Can I ask a question there, Jimmy? Can I add something to Brian there? Brian, how do you explain, though, a place like in Peru where you have like the Coricancha, perfectly square 90-degree angles for stones versus something like the polygonal stones we see in a lot of areas around that? It seems like there may be 2 different types of megalithic designs.
Okay, yeah,
can I answer? Can I answer?
Well, there are two different styles. There's the polygonal, and then it's not perfect straight lines in the Coricancha. It's waves, rippling waves. So yeah, there's definite evidence that there are 2 forms of megalithic construction. One is polygonal, and one is much more linear, but not perfect straight lines like you find in Egypt.
Okay, so now let me give you my answer. It's the correct one.
Of course.
Pillsbury biscuits. What? Go with me. You ready, Matt?
Okay.
Okay. Brian and I had this discussion, right? Yeah. Okay. And Brian goes, so what do you think, Jimmy? How'd this get done? We were shooting a video, and we were at Sacsayhuaman, and I said, remember when your mom would put biscuits in a pan, put them in the oven, and then pull them out, and they're all touching? What? Think about what I'm saying. Poofed out, right? But they're all touching. And you stand at Sacsayhuaman, and you look down 1,000 feet of these stones, that some of them are 100 tons, 30, 40 feet tall, 10 feet into the ground, but they're all poofy biscuits.
Like they were heated.
Poofy biscuits. And they are perfect. Now, we are talking stones as big as your house, 2 stories tall, 2.5 stories tall, ginormous, that were brought okay, yes, okay, all right. But when you really look, they are perfect. There are no gaps. Polygonal is a weak word when we talk about the sides use, right? Intricate, little how poofy biscuits. Whose phone is that? Brad, put him in the corner. So that's my take. And I said, now, as crazy as that sounds, what's crazier is they did it on an industrial scale that we can't imagine. That's the crazier part. I think they could have heated them, sure. And I think it's, it's something that needs to be looked at, but on a scale that we just can't wrap our head around, because Sacsayhuaman is so big. And it's not just there. It's all over Cusco. You go to different spots in Peru, but it's one of the most impressive things. So I'm going Pillsbury biscuits. I am. So think about that. And when I said that to you, you said, Jimmy, that's a good answer. And it caused you to think maybe a little bit differently or confirm what you had been thinking about already, right?
Well, it seems pretty obvious that the polygonal construction in Peru was that whoever did this work, and again, way beyond our capability, they were able to turn stone into marshmallow material and then levitate it through space and put it into the wall, and then the stone would flash reconstitute itself, and that's why you have like the puffy external bulging. Like for a split second, the stone, or it's made not liquid, but it's made into like a marshmallow-like material, which means altering the state of the matter itself. Also, if you go to the quarry, the stone is very heterogeneous, which means that it's very inconsistent in terms of its composition, but the stones in the walls are homogeneous, which means totally consistent sense to them, like the stone has been physically manipulated.
And I was at Sacsayhuaman, Oman, and I remember that I had one of those experiences where you feel like you're splitting in two.
Is everybody familiar with the site that we're talking about?
Sacsayhuaman.
Sacsayhuaman in Cusco. Okay, I don't know how many thousands of feet wide it is, 3 levels, but these are walls made of stones as big as your house, all intricately put together. It's absolutely stunning and beautiful. But that's what we're talking about. When you come over the hill, what's the temple on top?
But could I just finish?
Well, just let me say, when you come over the hill, it's bigger than 5 of these hotels strung end to end. It's like that. It's that big. Continue.
I learned when I was there that I had this strange split and was aware of myself in 2 places, and came to learn from people who lived there that this was something that happened at Sacsayhuaman. I don't have an answer for it, but there is.
What do you mean you split and you were in 2 places?
It would be like I'm sitting here now,
right,
and be completely aware of me somehow moving out a distance. This part I'm still conscious of. And I talked with a person who lives there near Sacsayhuaman in Cusco. And they had had the same experience. And we had it, that's why I'm bringing it up. It was a fascinating discussion about what was the purpose of those huge, gigantic structures at Sacsayhuaman that are there today. And it went on. I have been a whole month in Peru and went everywhere and climbed everywhere. That was the only place where I had, and I think, aren't we an audience and speakers who don't hear the word split in two and think that this is silly?
Right,
No,
right.
This is.
No,
this is-
I want to know.
This is absolutely
Right.
a part of that part of the world. And when you talk with people who live there, and they, oh, yes, and then they tell you the story of when they floated away and were very conscious. Was Saksao Oman an ancient way to connect with this connected universe? That now it's being talked about by mathematicians and physicists, that every point in this universe is somehow connected.
And the mind-blowing part for me, then I'm going to go to Mike Ricksecker next, is that we clearly don't know how they did it. We don't. We can speculate, but there is no written accounts of this. There's no oral traditions that are handed down. There isn't any chemistry or recipes about how no, it's like completely forgotten in time. And Brian and I were talking about this last month in Peru. I was like, dude, it's been left to us to figure out. This is like a real mystery. Remember when we had that discussion? It's left to us to figure out, and I don't know if we ever will.
I can add just one thing fast. I also went to Pia Pinte, which is about a 3-hour drive up out of Cusco, very high. And I was being taken by an archaeologist who works in Peru. And he wanted me to see the people and some doors. And it's a long story, but so I'm at the point where they've now taken me to where they want me to see the doors of a particular area that have symbols on them that have been done by the people who live there. And they knocked on the door, and when the door opened, I was looking at the most crystal blue eyes I personally have ever seen on a human being. Dark Peruvian skin. And I turned to the man who had taken me to the door, and I said, what is the story behind the blue eyes? And he said, extraterrestrials. We have a mountain that is higher than where we are now. And they come in their craft. And they have been coming in their craft for a very long time. And we end up with blue eyes, which was a very poetic way of saying that some sort of genetic manipulation is ongoing at this extremely high peak in Pia Pinte.
You know you have the bluest eyes I have ever seen. I'm just saying, I'm here. I'm looking into those blue eyes. Mike Ricksecker.
Jimmy Church.
Brian Forrester thinks it's aliens. Okay, no.
It
Brian,
could
just-
be. I didn't say it was.
Right.
I'm open to
Speaking a little
the
bit there.
concept.
Brian thinks it's aliens.
Yeah.
No.
And I'm thinking magic, right? I think that there was something,
Pulling a rabbit out of the hat.
you know, to move a 500-ton stone, the unfinished obelisk, 100 tons. I don't think most people understand how big and heavy we are talking about here. It's insanity. We can't do it with our stuff today. It would break a train. Break a train. A 100-ton block, a semi-truck fully loaded is 60,000 pounds. Do you know how many tons that is? Somebody do the math. 5,000 pounds in a ton. 2,000 pounds in a ton. 60,000 pounds on a semi-truck. How many tons?
30 tons. 30.
On a good day. Now, what would a 100-ton block do to a tractor trailer? Crush it. And that's the best we got, right? So how are they doing this?
The unfinished obelisk is 1,200 tons. The largest block at Baalbek in Lebanon is 1,600 tons.
1,600 600
And
tons.
the Yangshan quarry in China has a 16,000-ton block stele that was not finished. It was being removed from the host rock.
That's insanity to me. So, what was the plan? Right? You go to the unfinished obelisk. You're looking at a 1,500. Brian says 12. It's really 1,500 tons, and you look at it and it's carved. Okay, what was the plan? What was the plan? Was it magic? What are we talking about here?
That's an excellent question. I'm glad you asked. Yeah, and what we're being told in many cases was they floated these things down the Nile River. And how do you adjust for the balance, the ballast and the buoyancy and all that on whatever raft or boat or their?
Do you know how big of a boat it takes to displace 1,000 tons?
Absolutely,
It's a freighter.
yeah. So
That's a big boat.
the quick answer is we truly don't know how they did it, but we have ideas. I do want to go back to a couple things here real quick before I get to that idea. Going all the way back to the beginning of this question with Jason and what he was talking about there, the idea of the pole shift. The last pole shift was about 40,000 years ago, last for about 400 years, and brought the Earth's protection down to about 6%. So these people weren't really going outside. And what we find a lot around about 40,000 years ago is cave art. So these people were hanging out inside, and the idea of let's try to redistribute the power around the Earth, that actually does make a lot of sense. How are they communicating that? We'll get to that in a moment. But to answer your question, I think that's one of the reasons why, go back to Antarctica here, why people are looking down at Antarctica. Very mysterious. Again, access is very limited. What is hidden under that ice? If, like Linda had mentioned earlier, that everything connected. And by the way, Linda, I love that you said connected universe because my new book series is Connecting the Universe. So
It's the most important concept for humans to get now and get it right.
It's the next stage of evolution. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
agree. Yeah. I absolutely agree with that. But with everything having previously been connected, is that technology that was used to move these blocks, is there a hidden pyramid under the ice there? And that technology with it to move your Pillsbury biscuits, is that technology hidden under the ice there? Is that what we are truly down there in Antarctica to find? Very well could be. As far as communication, so my latest Connecting the Universe book, portals to the stars, stargates, portals, ancient Egypt, all that. Yeah, I talk a lot about stargates in there, but I think we always think of a stargate as we're going from here to somewhere else in the cosmos. Like the movies and the films and the television shows and all that. And yeah, very well could be. But I think something that we forget about is the global consciousness. And yes, how we are all connected. So these Stargate chambers that we find in Egypt, and they're labeled very in plain sight, Stargate. Instead of the idea of going somewhere else to the cosmos, was this a way to go into this chamber and be able to communicate in a way with perhaps not even realizing that we are communicating with somewhere else on the earth, but sharing the ideas, connecting with consciousness across the earth, maybe even like Linda was saying, splitting in two and having these conversations with other beings across the globe to share these ideas, and that's why everything looks similar.
So how do we move the blocks? How do we move a 100-ton stone?
Magic.
Magic. I mean, and are we talking
Neutralizing gravity is how they do it.
Yeah, is
So-
that anti-gravity technology hidden?
Is it like Merlin, David Copperfield?
It is where we just left off about the consciousness connected
Right.
of this cosmos. This is where you have to start. And then the ability to work at the subatomic level, which the ETs do, is how they neutralize gravity and do a whole lot of things that are still physics. It's not magic. And we are at a point where we have been lied to by the government since World War II. They knew then that we were dealing with extraterrestrials in World War II. And when a man who worked for the CIA told me World War II was an extraterrestrial war fought through human bodies.
Could it be both? Could it be magic and ET? Okay, audience
No.
poll. Audience poll.
We don't need magic. We
Who
just
thinks
need.
it was? Applause. Who thinks it was magic?
Yes.
Wow. Who thinks it was aliens? Interesting.
Well, Jimmy, I would contend that that's one of the reasons why the Nazis were down there in Antarctica. We knew that Hitler was, trying to collect these power objects. So if he had known that there was some sort of anti-gravity technology down there, that would be a massive boon for the Nazis during World War II.
But when we're looking at a site, let me give you guys an example why I think like I do. Look at Stonehenge. And just recently, it came out, this was a press release about 3 weeks ago, that the stones actually came 500 miles away.
Yeah.
You know, not 60, right? 500 miles. You know, 7,000 years ago, 5,000 BC. That's pretty insane. So, okay, Jason says.
You can finish, but I want to add.
No, go ahead.
All right. There's a native saying that was told to me, and this is the saying, and it goes back to what Mike was saying. Don't tell secrets in front of a pine tree because the world will hear it. Okay? And that's
how connected everything is.
right. So some of the native shamans will go to the pine tree, talk to it, and the shamans around the world will hear it. All right? So that's one thing. The next thing is there was a case about 10 years ago of a skier in New York City, or New York State. He was going down the little bunny hill with his family, disappears. They searched for him for 7 days. He shows up in California, so from New York to California, he shows up in a parking lot in California in his ski suit, in his
True
skis.
story, though, by the
True
way.
story.
True story.
And he did not know how he got there. For him, he was skiing down the hill, and the next thing he knew, he was standing in the parking lot. But they were searching for him for 7 days. And the first news stories that came out were he doesn't know anything, he has no memory, he has nothing. And then a couple weeks later, there was a news story that came out and said, oh, he had amnesia and he hitchhiked all the way to California. You know, so that's the
True story, by the way.
Yeah.
True story, yeah.
That's a cover-up.
That's a cover-up. I believe it's a cover-up because I believe that there is a portal system on the planet right now that has to do with the sun and the electromagnetic grid of the Earth, and that's why the sites are placed on very specific points on the planet. And that in ancient times they knew about this portal system, and this is how I believe knowledge was passed from continent to continent. They can walk into, let's say, the cave, and walk out of another cave in another part of the planet.
Exactly.
To pass that knowledge.
Well, these are 7 of my favorite people up here on this stage. And one of the questions that gets asked so much about anything is why cover it up? Why lie to us? Why? It doesn't make any sense. You know, this is our planet. We're talking about nature. Why the secrets? Why keep it from us? And I think that today, that question is more important than it's ever been. So I'm going to start with Bryant. There's a reason, Bryant. You're in the middle of something that the government has been involved in, and it seems like whatever's going on there, that secret was almost kept from us. And you guys are now there trying to bring it to the public. Why would the government want to keep something like Skinwalker Ranch a secret?
Why do they want to keep anything a secret? Honestly, I mean, there's always an end game of some sort. I mean, there's a bunch of different theories. Obviously, you know, the answer you'll get is, well, the public's just not ready for this. Okay, I'm ready.
You guys ready?
Yes. Yes.
Or they've learned something that has furthered our own technology and advancement that they don't want to give credit to, we'll use Linda's term, ETs, if you will.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a lot of different reasons. I think that the more that they can control a narrative for us, the easier that they can control us.
Now, do you feel, before I move on, do you feel surveilled?
Yes.
They're watching you. Mm-hmm. It's a piece of land. Mm-hmm. Why would they do that? You know what I mean? It's like crazy. Why keep this from the public? And why would, if aliens don't exist, according to the government, if there's nothing paranormal in the world, there's nothing crazy, everything is black and white, then why would they care about what you guys are doing?
They like to keep their secrets.
That's it.
I really think that they like to keep their secrets. I think that it's obvious that things have happened that have been hidden or kept from our knowledge or, any kind of disclosure, because there's always an ulterior motive, whether that be control, whether that be power, whether that be money, whatever it may be.
Right.
And
now,
so,
if you guys stumble on the big thing, you're going to go public with it, right? Brandon's going to go public with it, right?
100%. That's
Love
why
it.
he has refused to take a single dime of any sort of money outside of his own private investment for that very reason. Like, he bought the ranch literally to disprove and say that it was bullshit. And when he had his own personal experience and witnessed what was going on and became going from a skeptic to a believer to an actual experiencer,
Right.
that cemented in his head, I'm going to show that there is something to this, and I'm not going to let anybody have a say in what I'm doing. That's why at his great expense and cost, he's brought in people he cares about and he trusts, and that's the team he's put around him because he wants the ability to show the world whatever it is that we find.
Thank you for everything you guys are doing up
you
there.
bet.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael Cremo. I mean, he wrote the book, literally, Forbidden Archaeology. Why would the man keep us down like this and keep it secret? What's the big deal? Isn't it our right to know about our past?
Not according to some people. I mean, we've heard some very interesting things here about controlling the narrative. If you can control a person's sense of identity, if you can give them a sense that, well, what are you ultimately? Who am I ultimately? Well, you're a machine made of molecules. And we've heard about consciousness. I think that's the whole key to the whole thing. Most scientists today will say that consciousness is a byproduct of bioelectrical activity in the brain. And they'll say it's just produced if you organize the matter in the brain in the form of neurons in a sufficiently complex way, it will generate what we call consciousness. But nobody's ever shown how to do that, how you can get consciousness from matter. It hasn't. I mean, I've been going to conferences, scientific conferences on consciousness for several decades. And 20 or 30 years ago, they were saying, we'll have it all figured out in 20 or 30 years. 20 or 30 years pass, still the same problem. So if you can define a person's sense of identity, then automatically their values, their goals, their objectives in life will be in harmony and consistent with that sense of self. And basically the sense of self that they want to keep intact is that you're a machine made of molecules in competition with others. And that way your goals, our goals and values become very materialistic. We think that to consume and produce more and more material things is the main purpose of human existence. And therefore there have grown up political institutions scientific institutions, financial institutions, cultural institutions, even religious institutions that are based on keeping people in that mentality. And it generates, if people think that my purpose in life is to work, be a good producer and consumer of material things, that's my purpose in life, that benefits a certain segment of society who profit from that, keeping people in that state of mentality where they automatically do these things. They don't have to be forced or prodded. If you can control the sense of identity, say if I think I'm an American man, well, that's how I behave. If you can control a person's sense of identity, then automatically they'll do what's required. And I think that's why there's so much resistance to this idea that consciousness may have powers beyond what can be explained by our current laws of physics. And I think organizations like this or events like this, Conscious Life Expo is something that's really needed, to emphasize that no, I'm not a machine made of molecules in competition with everyone for survival. I'm a being of pure consciousness. You're a being of pure consciousness. We're all beings of pure consciousness. There's no need to divide ourselves up into different groups, competing groups based on superficial considerations. We can learn how to solve our material needs in the most simple, natural, efficient way possible while putting most of our human energy into developing this resource of consciousness, this conscious life. Because
Wow.
Jimmy, can I add something to that?
okay, I'll stop.
When I grow up, I want to be Michael Cremo.
Jimmy,
Thank you, man.
Jimmy, can I add something to that?
Yeah, you may.
You asked the question before about how they built these things, and one of the consensus seems to come out that it wasn't magic, but I agree with you. I think it was magic, and I think we used to be.
I'm right with you.
And I think this actually goes along with the reason I wanted to say something is that Michael Cremo hit it right on. If we were to know who we used to be, we would understand how powerful we are. And by limiting that,
It's so true. Yeah, no, you're right. And Matt, I want you to finish that thought. But here's the thing. When you go to a 12,000-foot altitude, 13,000 feet, 40, that, Brian does every day, right? Where there's no trees. No trees. They didn't have the wheel. They didn't have a written language. They didn't have paper. How did it all get done? How did this happen? How did they move it? Now, it's an Occam's razor kind of situation. And I'm okay with Merlin out there with some magic staff levitating stuff. Brian, you said that to me once. I said, how'd they do it? You go, they levitated it.
yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Is that when we look
Was
at
it sound?
the
Was
things
it
that they've
sound?
left behind in symbols, they're often based on alchemical understandings and mastering the laws of physics and also the potential of consciousness, like Michael Cremo was talking about, is that it all points towards human beings during this time period of these lost civilizations mastering completely different things than we did. Like
Well,
Michael said,
okay, this is where it could be aliens. Because Alan Steinfeld just walked in the room, and he's a hybrid. Alan Steinfeld's a hybrid. This is why I think it could be aliens.
Jimmy, why are you skipping over neutralizing gravity in beams that have been demonstrated by UFOs all over this planet?
That's
in the
why I think
last-
it's both. Well, let me explain. I don't know everything. I don't. I'm trying to get to these answers. And one of the things that I truly believe in, when ET comes down and starts talking to us in public, we can talk about what goes on in somebody's bedroom or out in the middle of the desert. That's different. But like right now, real time, media access, they're going to say it wasn't numbers, it wasn't math, it wasn't this, it was consciousness. That's your key to evolution. And that's why I think in the past, in the deep past, E.T. was teaching us how to use our minds and how to communicate and how to utilize consciousness. And we have forgotten that. That's my take. And so is that the magic part? Well, yeah. But if we're ever going to achieve our next stage in evolution, whoever said that earlier, it's going to be consciousness. It's not going to be numbers. It's not going to be quantum computing. It's going to be consciousness. And until we figure that out, we're not going to get to the next level. Do you guys agree?
But there are technologies that are not mind concentrating. There are technologies that neutralize gravity. They know how to manipulate at the subatomic level.
I agree.
I have been told about 18 months ago, it was at another conference, and a man walked up to me and said, I listened to you on your Earth Files YouTube channel, and I just want you to understand that we, meaning his implication would be intelligence, we have been told that the shapeshifters, the reptiles in Vietnam that Schwarzenegger did Predator about, this is called in his world, subatomic camouflage. We're talking about physical, biological, electrical, magnetic field manipulation, and time. Time is one of the most important parts. There is a whole temporal change group in our government. We are already working with moving in time. These are technologies that are taking advantage of understanding what extraterrestrials have either shown us or we have been actively trying to understand. These are technologies. Subatomic camouflage are the shape-shifting abilities of ETs, and they've been using it for millennia. And if three have been competing here for 270 million years, and that is correct, not 1,000, 270 million, why is Homo sapiens sapiens so completely kept out of everything that very advanced extraterrestrial civilizations have been doing to this planet, this solar system, hundreds of other solar systems for millennia? Why are we so isolated? To me, that's the big mystery.
Nobody says Homo sapien sapien like Linda Moulton Howe. I'm going on the record. And I think that you've been manipulating time too as well, young lady. But wouldn't, okay,
Because
Jason,
it's 7:15 p.m.?
what's that?
Are you saying because it's 7:15 p.m.?
No, I'm saying you've been going backwards in time for about 20 years. Am I wrong? Jason wants to jump in.
Yeah.
But let me say this, Linda. So if we are talking about that on a molecular level, being able to manipulate it, wouldn't that be mind-driven?
It can be technologically driven because where the frequency is the key.
Right.
Frequency is the key to everything at every level. So depending upon the frequency that is being focused at the subatomic level or wherever it is,
Right.
they're beings who understand all of that. We are beings that have been kept dumb. And the current CIA, NSA, DSA, JSOC, all of them, they are working in collaboration with very large spacecraft out about 20 to 40 light years from here. They have been built with collaboration with tall whites and Nordic ETs. I have no question about this whatsoever. And those are the ones that have been named after 3 of the CIA directors of the United States. And they are spacecraft that we are learning the pure technical frequency. This is how you do this. This is how you, and this is probably one of the most important things that I have been in a discussion with one of these guys in depth. When they talk about that we move point to point in this particular universe, the point to point has to do with computers that know how to create a point that is going to be a resonant frequency number, and it's in dimension 3. And they know how to leave dimension 3 after they have told the computer, we want you to generate the exact comparable frequency point in dimension 5. And this one will hold in dimension 3, and let's say it's Proxima A and B, a few light years out there. The computers put in their resonant frequency math, and instantly, as soon as they've done it, the resonant frequency point in dimension 5 is where they are.
To Homo sapien sapien.
No, they're in another dimension. We have traveled through to another dimension. And then they tell the computer, now match the resonant frequency that is in dimension 3.
It's like a GPS. Yes.
And
yes.
bang,
Yeah.
they are now at Proxima A and B.
Right.
And it took 5 seconds in Earth time.
That makes sense.
But they've gone millions of miles. I mean, we're not talking, because it's out of that world. It's frequency at the subatomic level. That's how the ET.
I love that. I love that. Frequency is GPS. Right? Right? You don't need a 3-point or anything. Frequency would be able to accomplish that.
Well, it's been one of the most fascinating, deep discussions that I've ever had.
Yeah, that's incredible.
People who are doing this. They've been out there.
It was announced last week, that asteroid Bennu and the rock samples, soil samples that were brought back to this planet revealed the only five components of DNA were in that soil sample. Show of hands, who heard about this? Who?
Yeah.
Okay, Linda,
Yeah.
Professor Howe, you settle down. Check this out.
Biology on
14 of the 20 known amino acids on planet Earth were found on Bennu. Now, wait a minute. Are you ready? I'm not done. We have 80 known proteins, stuff you eat, proteins on this planet. 40 of those 80 were found on Bennu. I don't know about you guys, but that's a holy shit moment, isn't it? Floating around in the vacuum of space. Now, the subject of tonight's panel is mysterious origins, and I would say something is floating around in space with the DNA information that is all over the universe. Think about that for a second. So I'm going to pose this. No, Matt, you're up next. Matt, is it possible that DNA is universal? Life here is the same on the other side of everything?
Well, I think everything we see here is a mirror of the universe. And that seems to be the reflection we get, is that what we see here with the levels of consciousness and our path through enlightenment and learning about our purpose seems to be reflected as above, so below. The law of correspondence seems to be just above us as well. And like the universe is experiencing growth and cycles through us.
So, Mike Ricksecker, as we wrap up, Mike Ricksecker, is DNA universal? Is it just particles are particles, they combine the way they combine, And it's just the way that it is.
Well, what's fascinating about DNA is we know so little about it. There's a small percentage that we actually have some information about, and the rest of it we call junk DNA. Do you really think it's junk? It's not at all. It's just DNA that we don't quite understand yet. So do we have connections back to the rest of the universe? Again, everything is connected. So yes, we do. We are connected physically. We are connected consciously. And I love Michael Cremo's response earlier. That was fantastic. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, we are connected back to the rest of the universe. I mean, we started from, you want to go to the Big Bang Theory, we started from a singularity. So we are absolutely connected. And then in the end, we come back together once again.
So what is the mysterious origins of us?
As far as humanity, do I believe that we started on Earth?
Was it Lucy?
No.
We still have, right? We still have the missing link out there. We still don't know. Homo sapiens sapien is 200,000 years old, right? But we don't have anything to match up in between there. But yet everything seems to be on asteroid Bennu that answers all these questions.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you my honest opinion. I do not believe humanity started on Earth. I believe that we are an interstellar species, and we have forgotten that long, long ago. Kind of what Matt was talking about. It's almost like what Graham Hancock even talks about. We're a species with amnesia, and we've had cataclysms that have over the millennia caused us to have forgotten our origins, our connections with the beings, and those beings could be our progenitors. You look at ancient Egypt and how they believe that we came from the constellation of Orion down here, and then when we pass, we go back to where we began, Orion. So is that where we are originally from? Did we make stops along the way, like Mars, and then we came here? That's possible too. Those are questions we are trying to answer.
Well, Bennu is an indication of this stuff is just floating around everywhere. Bennu is a little tiny piece of dust compared to the rest of the universe, and it's got everything on it to create life. That's insane, isn't it? Yeah. Just insane. Jason.
Yes.
What's our mysterious origins?
Well,
is DNA universal?
Well, the hypothesis that you're
speaking to the mic, brother.
The hypothesis that you're speaking of is something called panspermia.
Correct.
And basically, is our planet seeded? And there's plenty of evidence to suggest that it is. And also, if you look at your DNA itself, over the spans of tens of millions of years, viruses, when we get sick, the viruses, the amino acids in those viruses actually connect to our DNA and alter us. So every time we get sick, we get upgraded. All right? So viruses from outer space, spores from outer space, things that come into our atmosphere can actually upgrade us and change us and evolve us. So this is a very interesting hypothesis, and they're finding more and more evidence to suggest that that's the case.
I find that fascinating. And sound man, can you bring up this mic, please? It's my favorite mic because it makes me sound like Barry White on a good day.
Hey, Brian.
Did you guys have a good time tonight? Did you have a good time tonight? This is an all-star situation on the stage. Why don't you give it up for Jason Quitt? Louder. Jason Quitt. Linda Moulton Howe. Brian Forrester. Michael Cremo. In January, Bryant's going to go on a cruise to the Bermuda Triangle. You excited about that?
Yeah, you guys can all come too. Absolutely.
Can I?
Yeah.
So this is what I said to Brian. I said, look, man, I'm going to mention this on stage. Can I sleep with you in your cabin? He said, yeah. So I'm going, but I got a roomie with Brian. Brian Dragon Arnold. Matt LaCroix. And your NSA agent for the evening. True story, Mr. Mike Ricksucker. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is kicking off Right here at, my voice is scratched, here at the Conscious Life Expo 2025. It's going to be an amazing weekend. You guys give it up for yourselves. This was an amazing night. I had such a great time. Thank you so much. Come on.